everybody. This one is called The United Nations is Satanic. Get Us Out. This is the Congressional Record, August 12th, 1940, the U.S. House of Representatives. And there's the text. We're going to talk about the text here in a minute. That's a little closer. And this is what the text says. Mr. Speaker, the information contained in this booklet is important at this time, particularly in view of the fact that the pro-English groups in the United States are now working in close cooperation with world internationalist organizations. Before 1917, foreign influence came mainly from Anglo-American groups. Since the World War, these groups have been fortified by the international financiers and the internationalists, or the so-called minority group. The pressure is therefore more than double, for combined these groups control all avenues of communication, sounds like the news media, and are now using them to further their plan of British domination to establish a world federation of states. So this is all coming from England. And let me call your attention to the fact that on the reverse of the Great Seal of the United States, which appears on our dollar bills, you will find the exact symbol of the British Israel World Federation movement. This symbol is also carried on literature of other organizations promoting a world government and a world religion. At the bottom of the circle surrounding the pyramid, you will find the wording Novus Ordo Seclorum. It was this new order that was advocated by Clinton Roosevelt several hundred years ago, recently Philip Drew, and now by the executive. And here is the dollar bill, and if you see, there's the Great Seal and Novus Ordo Seclorum and the all-seeing eye, and the Congressional Record goes on. Do you not think, as good American people, that the administration has gone far from constitutional government when there is inscribed a symbol on the reverse of our Great Seal that advocates a new order? Yes, an order that means the destruction of our republic as formulated in the Constitution of the United States. It may also interest you to know that this contemplated union now, as advocated by Clarence Street, will be under the control of Great Britain and is a movement to return the United States as a colony in the British Empire. Should we become a part of this union, our traditional rights and liberties will be lost. We will have no greater status than an English possession. This was the dream of Cecil Rhodes and Andrew Carnegie when the latter wrote his book, Triumphant Democracy, in 1893. Steps Towards British Union, a World State and Internal Strife, Part 5. And so there is the Queen went and visited George Bush Jr. in 2007, and the one on the left is Prince Philip, calls people like me and you useless eaters, wants to come back as a virus so he can kill a bunch of us off. Okay, these people are Satanists. And there's the bitch drinking a toast with George Bush. Now she's wearing her crown. When she visited Canada last time, she wore a red hat. And so therefore she is obviously on business. This is the concessions of England to the Pope. In 1213, we will establish a perpetual obligation and concession. We will establish that from the proper and especial revenues of our aforesaid kingdoms, for all the service and customs which we ought to render for them, saving in all things the penny of St. Peter, the Roman Church shall receive yearly 1,000 marks sterling, namely at the feast of St. Michael 500 marks, and at Easter 500 marks, 700 for England and 300 for Ireland. So this is tribute, okay? This is when England was seized by the Roman cult. So that's the really who's behind all of this is the Roman cult, is where it's all roads lead to Rome, right? And so this is Pope Francis found guilty of child trafficking, rape, and murder. Yesterday, Pope Francis Bergoglio, Catholic Jesuit Superior Adolfo Pachon, and Archbishop Canterbury Justin Welby were found guilty of rape, torture, murder, trafficking of children. 5 justices of the International Common Law Court of Justice in Brussels determined that the crimes occurred as recently as 2010. Since last March, over 48 eyewitnesses have come forward to testify before this ICLCJ court about the defendants' activities as members of the Ninth Circle Satanic Child Sacrifice Cult. Okay, these people sacrifice children. The Ninth Circle Satanic Cult was said to do child sacrifices at the Roman Catholic cathedrals in Montreal, New York, Rome, Scotland, London, Carnarvon Castle in Wales, and undisclosed French chateau in Holland, and at Canadian Catholic and Anglican Indian residential schools in Kamloops, British Columbia, and Brantford, Ontario, Canada. The Ninth Circle Satanic Child Sacrifice Cult was believed to use privately owned forest groves in U.S., Canada, France, and Holland for their human hunting parties. For global elites, including members of the European royal families, teens were said to be obtained by the mafia, then stripped naked, raped, hunted down, and killed. The chief prosecutor said the Catholic Church is the world's largest corporation. It appears to be in collusion with the mafia, governments, police, and courts worldwide. 2 adolescent women told the court that Pope Francis raped them while participating in child sacrifices. 8 other eyewitnesses confirmed their allegations of being witness to rape and child sacrifices. This is an absolute abomination. This is where this is all coming from. This is who's behind the United Nations, is this Roman cult. The Roman cult is satanic. In the 1990s, Father Malachi Martin, a Catholic monk, was on Coast to Coast AM talk radio program with Art Bell, and he said at that time that the Roman cult was taken over by Lucifer in 1955. Father Malachi Martin died shortly thereafter under mysterious circumstances. Pope Francis was previously the Jesuit general, a black pope. Pope Francis is now talking about a one-world religion. And here's the Satanist right there. Claims you're not a Christian if you own a gun. Of course, you don't want anybody to be able to defend themselves. These people are cowards, okay? And they don't want anybody defending themselves. They want to be able to slit your throat and drink your blood and not have you be able to defend yourself. This is his warrant for his arrest, the Pope, and then there's the bitch, okay? That's her warrant for her arrest. And there it is up close. And there's Obama, his warrant for his arrest, so he's implicated in all of this. And Stephen Harper, okay, his warrant and for his arrest, he's implicated in all of this. This is the United Nations meditation room. It's clearly an altar. The 10 backless benches that are supposed to be in that room are not in the picture. I guess it's maybe for the 10 kings that are in the book of Revelations. All churches are called non-governmental organizations. The publishing company for the United Nations is called Lucis Press, it's formerly called Lucifer Publishing Company, now called Lucis Trust, and the lucistrust.org, that's their website. Controls the courts through the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. They assault people with their law merchant through the Unidroit. Controls the status of women and children. Eliminates common law through the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. Converts rights guaranteed under the first 10 amendments into privileges with the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. And so we're going to talk a little bit about Unidroit. Unidroit stands for the Unification of Private Law, And the website says that 63 countries have adopted it, and it's designed to be automatically implemented. Canada, United States have been signatories to the UNIDROIT Treaty for over 30 years. The UNIDROIT website said it was designed to be automatically implemented, okay? In other words, when UNIDROIT makes a change, all of the signatories of the treaty are required to make the same changes. And so it just flows down. They don't pass acts, they don't pass statutes, it just automatically happens. And this is their website. And so let's get in closer. It talks about franchising, commercial contracts, cultural property. It talks about all sorts of things in here. Leasing, security interests, transport, banking law, capital markets, civil liability, civil procedure. The rules and the courts are all governed by UNIDROIT. All these courts are all controlled by UNIDROIT. Contracts, cultural property, franchising, hotel keepers, insurance, intellectual property, leasing, legal status of women, maintenance obligations, movement of persons, negotiable instruments. UNIDROIT covers mandatory insurance for motor vehicles, anything related to marriage, divorce, and children. And this is another page on the UNIDROIT website. The 1955 Benelux Treaty on Compulsory Insurance Against Civil Liability with Respect to Motor Vehicles in Europe. The 1958 Conventions concerning the recognition and enforcement of decisions relating to maintenance obligations towards children. The 1959 European Convention on Compulsory Insurance Against Civil Liability in respect of motor vehicles. And so, and here's the list of countries. This is only a partial list. I didn't list them all here. The important ones are Canada, Australia, United Kingdom, United States. This is all basically the England and then the Roman cult. That's exactly where it's going to. This is the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, Article 2, Clause 1. Each state party to the present covenant undertakes with respect to ensure to all individuals within its territory and subject to its jurisdiction the rights recognized in the present covenant without distinction of any kind, such as race, color, sex, language, religion, political or other opinion, national or social origin, property, birth, or other status. Okay, status is Roman law, and so this is all Roman cult. This is Article 2, Clause 2. Were not already provided for by existing legislative or other measures, each state party to the present covenant undertakes to take necessary steps in accordance with its constitutional processes and with provisions of the present covenant to adopt such laws or other measures as may be necessary to give effect to the rights recognized in the present covenant. Okay, so they're telling the states to make laws to enforce all the stuff that this covenant tells them to do. Article 2, Clause 3. Each state party to the present covenant undertakes to ensure that any person whose rights or freedoms are as herein recognized or violated shall have an effective remedy, notwithstanding that the violation has been committed by persons acting in an official capacity, to ensure that any person claiming such a remedy shall have his right thereto determined by competent judicial, administrative, or legislative authorities, or by any other competent authority provided for by legal system of the state, and to develop the possibilities of judicial remedy, and to ensure that the competent authorities shall enforce such remedies when granted. Okay, so they're going to assault you with their Roman laws, what they're going to do. Article 3, the state parties to the present covenant undertake to ensure the equal right of men and women. Okay, so they're going to assault men and women with their Roman law. Everyone shall have the right to be recognized everywhere as a person before the law. Okay, so they're going to assault you with their person. The United Nations is converting our unlimited right to freedom of religion into a privilege under their Roman law. The United Nations is converting our unlimited right to freedom of speech into a privilege under their Roman law. The United Nations is converting our unlimited rights, and there's lots of them. We have unlimited number of rights into Roman law privileges. This is Article 18. Everyone shall have the right to freedom of thought, conscience, and religion. And then Clause 2, no one shall be subject to coercion which would impair his freedom or have or adopt a religion or belief of his choice. And then if you read in Clause 3, so they always put these little strings, okay, and these have to and wherefores and all this stuff. Freedom to manifest one's religions or belief may be subject only to such limitations as are prescribed by law. So, yeah, we give you all these rights, and then we take them away. And so, at common law, they're absolute rights. They cannot be taken away under any circumstances. And so, it's nothing but it's a fraud. That's these Roman law Satanists, okay? This is all coming from the Roman cult. And this is Article 19. Everyone shall have the right to hold opinions without interference, okay? That's called freedom of speech. This right shall include the freedom to seek, receive, impart information, ideas of any kind, regardless of the frontiers. And then they go and then they take it back in Clause 3. The exercise of rights provided in paragraph 2 of this carries with it special duties and responsibilities. So they give it out and then they take it back. It's all a big scam. And so this is actually an article that I found on a blog, The Death of London's Roman Empire, by Lyndon LaRouche. And he goes through and talks about how it's dying, okay? And that's the UN, okay? It's over. We need to get out of the UN. It's a Satanist organization, and the sooner we get out of it, the better. This is United Nations converts absolute common law rights into Roman law privileges. Every citizen and freeman is endowed with certain rights and privileges which no written law or statute is required. These are fundamental and natural rights recognized among all free people. If you're free, then you do not need these Roman law statutes. Slaves need statutes. Free men don't need those statutes. They assault you with their statutes, get used to those statutes, so then they can, because you're not free. Okay, so do you know who you are? And now a little diversion. This is an advertisement. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Don't forget to click the bell next to the subscribe button so you're notified when there's a new upload. And there's the front page of the channel, and there's the arrow points to the bell. Click that little bell, and a little menu will come up saying you want to be notified about everything, and that way you get notified about uploads. And back to the topic at hand. All courts are United Nations courts. The United Nations controls the nature of the jurisdiction of the courts under Roman law and controls the rules. They cannot use treaty power internally, but they are. Today, it's enough to highlight some of the structural and historical evidence suggesting that treaty power can be used to arrange intercourse with other nations, but not to regulate purely domestic affairs. And that's Bond versus United States, 2014. And then they talk about, in that case, about this case, Mayor of New Orleans versus United States, which is actually an old case from the 1800s. The government of the United States is one of limited powers. It can exercise authority over no subjects except those which have been delegated to it. Congress cannot, by legislation, enlarge the federal jurisdiction, nor can it be enlarged under the treaty-making power. And so, again, they cannot assault you with one of their treaties, but the Satanist whores do it all the time. But Madison insisted that just because this power is given to Congress, it did not follow that the treaty power was absolute and unlimited. The President and the Senate lacked the power to dismember the empire, for example, because the exercise of the power must be consistent with the object of the delegation. The object of treaties, in Madison's oft-repeated formulation, is the regulation of intercourse with foreign nations and is external. That's, again, that Bond versus United States case from 2014. And this is the Uniform Commercial Code. In Texas, it's called the Texas Business and Commerce Code. And action, in the sense of a judicial proceeding, includes recoupment, counterclaim, set-off, suit and equity, or any other proceeding in which rights are determined. Okay, so all of these courts fall under Unidroit. They're assaulting you with their Roman cult law. And this is UCC 1-206, presumptions. Whenever the Uniform Commercial Code creates a presumption with respect to a fact or provides that a fact is presumed, the trier of fact must find the existence of the fact unless and until evidence is introduced that supports a finding of its non-existence. And so, again, they assault you with their presumptions. This is all coming from the Roman cult. And the biggest presumption they have is about the Satanic Trust, and which is the Roman cult. This is Tomlin's Law Dictionary, 1835 edition, volume 2, under the definition of mort main. Yet still it was found difficult to set bounds to ecclesiastical ingenuity, for when they were driven out of all their former holds, they devised a new method of conveyance by which the lands were granted, not to themselves directly, but to nominal fiefs to the use of the religious houses, thus distinguishing between the possession and the use and the receiving the actual profits, while a season of the land remained in the nominal fief, who was held by the courts of equity, then under the direction of the Roman cult, still under the direction of the Roman cult, to be bound in conscience to the count for his sestike use for the rents and emoluments of the state. They're talking about taxes there, people. And this is all coming from the Roman cult. And it is to these inventions that our practitioners are indebted for the introduction of uses and trusts, the foundation of modern conveyancing, and it's still the foundation of modern conveyancing. It goes back to the War of Independence. It's the same stuff that was going on. Statutes have been passed extending the courts of admiralty and vice admiralty far beyond their ancient limits for depriving us of the accustomed and inestimable privilege of trial by jury in cases affecting both life and property, to supersede the course of common law and instead thereof to publish and order the use and exercise of law martial. And for altering fundamentally the form of government established by charter, we saw the misery to which such despotism, these UN Satanists are despots. It's a tyranny is what it is, and the sooner we wake up to it, the better. That's taken from the Causes and Necessities of Taking Up Arms of 1775. This is taken from the non-ratification of the 14th Amendment by Judge A.H. Ellard of the Utah Supreme Court in the case Diet versus Turner. And this explains the same thing in a different way. In the meantime, the civil law was a form of law imposed in the Roman Empire, which was largely, if not wholly, governed by martial law rule. Equity has always been understood to follow the law. To have superior equity is to turn things on their head. This is exactly what happens when martial law is imposed. If equity is the law, then it follows its own course rather than following the common law, thereby destroying the common law and leaving what's called equity in its place. And so what they're saying is that when they have martial law, that common law is eliminated. There's no common law, and that's why they pass statutes for common law crimes and all sorts of things. And so when normally equity is supposed to follow common law, and under martial law there's no common law, so then equity can do literally anything it wants, and they even put that in their statutes. And so this Causes and Necessities for Taking Up Arms is basically saying the same thing as what Judge Ellett said in the non-ratification of the 14th Amendment. The courts of equity are now satanic, and it's still the Roman cult that run it. And that's why you see it's called moral relativism. They're using their Sestike Trust to transfer land in 1835, just like they are today. It was under a feudal system, just like it is today. It is the moral relativism that Passio talks about being one of the pillars of Satanism, And Passio's a former Satanist priest, so who better would know? The judicial whore is sitting there playing stupid. Justice is a commercial transaction, but if you do not recognize when the liar is testifying and you fail to object, the whore will accept it as the truth. It has nothing to do with justice. It's nothing more than a commercial transaction. And this is an Alberta Judicature Act where they go and put it in their codes. In all matters in which there is any conflict or variance between the rules of equity and common law with reference to the same matter, the rules of equity prevail. And and they will tell you, okay, and this is Canada or the U.S., they'll tell you I can do anything I want in here, and they'll be exactly right. This is the Texas Government Code. The district court may hear and determine any cause that is cognizable a court of law or equity, and may grant any relief that could be granted by either courts of law or equity. And so, again, what they're doing is this is a statute that recognizes common law in some form, okay? And common law means a lot of different things, okay? Common law, really what it is court decisions. Now, the reason that common law of England was so important to the founding of America is because common law of England was 800 years of jury trial decisions, and that's where the freedom, and that's essentially God's laws found in the Old Testament, which I talk about in some of my other videos. And so that's why it was so important. And but when they go and impose martial law, all of that stuff goes out the window. It's satanic. It's a moral relativism. The clerk, the whore on the bench, can do anything he wants. And so remember, under moral relativism with Passio, what they decide today, what's right or wrong, is what they decide today, and tomorrow it'll be something else. And that's exactly what goes on in these courts. And now a little diversion of advertisement announcing a subscription-based YouTube channel called Sovereignty International. The recommended cost of the subscription is currently $1.99 because it avoids the advertising only. Originally, when I set up this channel, I was planning on having some exclusive material, but the only power that these New World Order Satanists have over us is through fraud and deception, and my agenda is to expose it for all our benefit. And for that reason, there's going to be very little exclusive material on that channel. I'm currently publishing 6 videos a week, and I can't think of anything that I want to have on there exclusively. So I can't. There may at some point be exclusive material, but the only thing that the $1.99 is going to get you right now is just no advertising. And so it's a great way to make a donation too. $1.99 a month is all it is. Anyways, and some people have had trouble finding my channel, finding that channel in particular, and so the link to it is at the bottom of the screen. I've also got the link here at the top of the screen, and people have sent me a $1.99 donation, and I sent them an email, and because I was wondering if they were wanting me to subscribe to the channel, but I can't do that, okay? And so the point being is that if you want to subscribe, you're going to have to go through the free trial, and whatever YouTube wants you to do. They handle the payments. I imagine they're going to take a piece of the action, and I cannot control the subscribers. I might be able to remove them, but that's about the extent of it. And so that's out of my control. You're going to have to, if you want to subscribe, then that's how you got to do it. Anyways, back to the topic at hand. This is a Quebec court case. Perlman versus Pichet talks about the Magna Carta. The Magna Carta is not a unilateral act emanating solely from the spontaneous will of the king, as the charters of the predecessors of John. Neither is it a treaty, for we cannot say it was concluded between two legitimate and independent sovereignties, nor between two nations, nor is it a law. The barons do not appear in it as subjects, for they are freed from their promise of fidelity, and the king, brought captive, placed before them, submitted to the conditions which the conquerors imposed upon him. Magna Carta is therefore a contract, but resembles a treaty concluded between two nations, in that one of the parties, in virtue of the law of war, can impose its will upon the other. In other words, they stuck a sword to his throat. They said, "Here, king, we want you to sign this," okay? But the bottom line is it's all coming from the Roman cult. The Magna Carta is similar to a treaty. After the War of Independence, the Treaty of Paris was signed. These Satanists have no intention of abiding by their treaties. These Satanists are imposing perpetual warfare, and their so-called treaties mean absolutely nothing. What it is an opportunity for the Satanists to regroup, and so they can come back around again. That's exactly what it is. This is Merriam-Webster Dictionary, page 1534. Under the international law of warfare, all parties to a cause must appear by nom de guerre, because an alien enemy cannot maintain an action during the war in his own name. And then Black's Law Dictionary, 5th edition. A mixed war is one which is made on one side by public authority and by the other by mere private persons, okay? So even a court case, it's all commercial warfare. And I have a video, all commerce is warfare and all warfare is commerce. And so that's all you're going to have when you got this Roman cult running the show. It's all going to be warfare. It's all there ever will be. And so we need to put a stop to that. And another advertisement, this cubeyard.com. For great custom websites, domain names, and hostings, go to cubeyard.com. If you want to get a 20% discount, use coupon code CY172 on your first order. Cubeyard.com, your source for websites, domain names, and hosting. And back to the original topic. This is murder, theft, rape, kidnapping, and assault are all wrong until I put on my magic suit. And that's one of the Roman cult. Pull over, your tail lights are out. There's more Satanists there. And there's the Pope kissing Rockefeller's hand, okay? So that's what's going on here. The American Revolution was primarily fought over King George III's Currency Act. The refusal of King George III to allow the colonies to operate an honest money system which freed the ordinary man from the clutches of the money manipulators was probably the prime cause of the revolution. When plunder becomes a way of life for a group of men in a society over the course of time, they create for themselves a legal system that authorizes it and a moral code that glorifies it. There are two ways to conquer and enslave a nation. One is by the sword and the other is by debt. The money powers prey upon the nation in times of peace and conspire against it in times of adversity, is more despotic than monarchy, more insolent than autocracy, and more selfish than bureaucracy. It denounces as public enemies all who question its methods or throw light upon its crimes. As a result of the war, corporations have been enthroned, an era of corruption in high places will follow, and the money powers of the country will endeavor to prolong its reign by working upon the prejudices of the people until the wealth is aggregated in a few hands and the republic is destroyed. How prophetic. There is no peace, saith my God, to the wicked, Isaiah 57:21. Ezekiel 13:10, because they have seduced my people, saying peace, and there is no peace. There will be no peace as long as these Satanists are in power. When the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. When the wicked beareth rule, the people mourn. Who is a liar but he that denieth that Jesus is the Christ? He's the Antichrist that denieth the Father and the Son. Obama is an Antichrist, and that's who we had in power for 8 years, and he has done a huge amount of damage, and Trump is trying to undo some of that, and we'll see what happens there. And every spirit that confesseth not that Jesus Christ is come in the flesh is not of God. This is the spirit of Antichrist. For many deceivers are entered into the world who confess that, not that Jesus Christ is come in the flesh. This is a deceiver and an Antichrist. Obama's a Muslim. Muslims recognize that Christ is a great prophet, but they don't say that he is the Son of God. If Satan is to be bound, it's because there are Satanists everywhere. The book of Revelations is now. All fraud and lies are satanic. These satanic so-called courts are full of fraud. That's all they can do is commit fraud. These satanic so-called courts have replaced the law of the land with their satanic law merchants so they can get you into one of their satanic so-called contracts. All warfare is satanic. If there's anything more satanic than sending a bunch of people off to a field, or is there anything more satanic than sending a bunch of people off to a field to kill each other? Most self-proclaimed Christians are actually Satanists. See the Churchianity videos. Most so-called Christian churches are actually satanic. They have 501c3 tax-exempt status. The cross is a very Masonic symbol, and it's basically bragging about how they killed the Son of God. According to some of the stuff that I've seen, they cannot speak the truth. They're forced to speak half-truths and lies. Trump is talking about getting rid of that Johnson Amendment, and so we'll see. Hopefully he does. Mark Passio, a former Satanist priest, says that 2/3 of Americans are practicing Satanists. I think he's being generous. I think it's more like about 90%. Another advertisement, check out my other videos, Bankster Thieves 1, 2, and 3, Churchianity series, Bankrupt Corporate So-Called Governments, Bar Members 1, 2, and 3, Do It Yourself, How Not to Volunteer for the Selective Service, Martial Laws here, Do It Yourself, No Income Tax, Do It Yourself, No Sales Tax, Do It Yourself, Traffic Stop 1 and 2, Do It Yourself, Free Mail, Do It Yourself, Kangaroo Courts 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. All loans are a fraud. There are no bank loans. There is no federal debt. All foreclosures by banks are a fraud. The U.S. Congress is bought and paid for, owned and operated by the banksters and the Roman cult. The banksters with their bought and paid for Obama and their bought and paid for U.S. Congress are in the process of setting up a blood sacrifice to their satanic gods, and they'll get American Satanists to help them. And so this is all going to the Roman cult. So what can you do? You can refuse to participate in their system. You can use other money than the Federal Reserve notes, Bank of Canada notes, etc. You can use qualified endorsements for deposit for credit on account or in exchange for non-redeemable Federal Reserve notes at face value. And there's a lot of things you can do. You have to do something. The more we do to you, the less you seem to believe we're doing it. And that's the Nazis. So we need to get the United Nations out of America and Canada and anywhere that wants to be free. The United Nations owned and operated by the Roman, by the Crown and their Roman cult handlers. Why do you think it's called the Universal Church? Catholic means universal, okay? And this is certainly not saying about anything about people that happen to be Catholic. Some of my best friends are Catholic, and they're bringing this information to me. But the Catholic Church, Catholic means universal. Why do you think it's universal? It's because they intend to enslave everybody. And this is Jefferson's seal, rebellion to tyrants is obedience to God. And the depiction there is in the center, you see the horses and stuff. That's the Egyptian armies in the Dead Sea drowning. And in the top center is the pillar of fire, and on the left-hand side is the children of Israel on the bank. And so currently there's a House bill that's before Congress to get us out of the United Nations, H.R. 193, 115th Congress. And what it does is it repeals the United Nations Participation Act of 1945, and it repeals the United Nations Headquarters Agreement Act, and which was, I think, passed in 1946. And we need to make sure this thing gets passed because we need to run these UN Satanists off our shores, and we need to shed ourselves of this tyranny. And that's only the beginning. There's a whole bunch of other things that need to be done, but that's certainly a great start. And so we need to make sure this thing gets passed. Screw the UN. Just say no to UN globalism. Get us out to the UN. They that give up essential liberty to obtain a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. When injustice becomes law, then resistance becomes duty. Necessity is the plea for every infringement of human freedom. It is the argument of tyrants. It's the creed of slaves. It is a truth that when the experience of ages has attested that the people are always most in danger when the means of injuring their rights are in the possession of those of whom they entertain the least suspicion. Ain't that the truth? I prefer dangerous freedom over peaceful slavery. Copies of these documents can be found in my private group at Yahoo called Administrating Your Public Servants. I have videos of private information shares that show these and other court citations that are available for a donation. Donations to support this work are appreciated. I prefer gold or silver coin, but as an extremely less desirable alternative, I can accept IOUs, Federal Reserve notes, PayPal gifts, checks, money orders, etc. Send me an email for particulars. This last paragraph is for all the Satanist order follower revenue officers operating in their private capacity under the Federal Tax Lien Act of 1966. I prefer gold or silver coin. They can put their privileges and benefits up their rectal orifice. But as an extremely less desirable alternative, I can accept their commercial paper. Anyways, my blog is sovereigntyinternational.wordpress.com. My website is sovereigntyinternational.fyi. My email is engineerwin@yahoo. My YouTube profiles are Sovereign Living and Sovereignty International now. My Facebook community page, I deleted it due to censorship on the part of Facebook. My private group, Sovereignty International, is being deleted. It takes time to ban 17,000 people off your private group. And I'm not going to let Facebook profit off of my hard work. Yahoo private group is administering your public servants. My Google private group is administering your public servants. I appreciate you taking the time to watch this video. I hope you get something out of it. Spread the word. We need to get the UN out of this country. We need to get this country out of the UN and put an end to that tyranny and that Roman cult Satanism, or at least that's one of the little fishhooks they got in us. Anyways, I appreciate you watching the video, and have a great day.